I've noticed after all these years of studying success and watching people either make it or break it, most people are sitting around waiting to feel like doing something before they'll do it. They're waiting for inspiration to strike. They're waiting for Monday. They're waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect moment, the perfect alignment of the stars. And while they're waiting, life is passing them by at an alarming rate. Let me tell you something that changed my life when I finally understood it. Discipline doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're sad. It doesn't care if you had a rough night or a difficult morning. It doesn't care about your excuses, your reasons, or your circumstances. Discipline is a cold, hard reality that operates completely independent of how you feel about it. I learned this lesson the hard way, back when I was 25 years old, broke, and going nowhere fast. I had all the excuses in the world. I didn't feel like making those sales calls. I didn't feel like reading those books. I didn't feel like getting up early. I didn't feel like facing rejection. And you know what? My bank account reflected exactly how I felt. My life was a perfect mirror of my mood-driven decisions, and it wasn't a pretty picture. Here's what I finally figured out. Successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. But here's the part most people miss. It's not that successful people always feel like doing these things. They just do them anyway. They've learned to separate their feelings from their actions. They've mastered the art of doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. Think about it this way. An amateur works when they're inspired. A professional works on a schedule. An amateur waits until they're in the right mood. A professional creates the mood through action. An amateur needs everything to be perfect before they start. A professional starts and figures it out along the way. See the difference? One is controlled by their emotions. The other controls their emotions through disciplined action. Now, let me break down what this really costs you over time, because most people don't calculate the true price of mood-driven living. When you only work out when you feel like it, you might exercise once or twice a month. But the person who works out, whether they feel like it or not, exercises 20 to 25 times a month. In a year, that's 12 workouts versus 300 workouts. In 5 years, that's 60 workouts versus 1,500 workouts. The gap becomes so wide, it's almost impossible to catch up. The same principle applies to everything else. If you only save money when you feel like it, you'll stay broke. If you only treat your spouse well when you're in a good mood, you'll end up divorced. If you only work hard when you're inspired, you'll never build anything significant. If you only eat healthy when you feel motivated, you'll struggle with your health forever. Your feelings are temporary. Your results are cumulative. I remember talking to a man once who told me he was waiting to feel motivated before he started his business. I said, "How long have you been waiting?" He said, "About 5 years now." 5 years. Can you believe that? 5 years of his life gone while he waited for some magical feeling to show up. Meanwhile, someone else with half his talent and twice his discipline had already built what he was dreaming about. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Your bank account doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't care if you woke up feeling tired or uninspired. It responds to your actions, not your feelings. Your body doesn't care about your excuses. It responds to what you eat and how you move, not to your good intentions. Your relationships don't thrive on your occasional bursts of enthusiasm. They grow through consistent attention and care, regardless of how you feel on any given day. The people who are out of shape aren't that way because they don't know what to do. They know they should exercise and eat better. They're out of shape because they only do these things when they feel like it. And let me tell you, if you wait until you feel like exercising, you'll spend most of your life on the couch. The people who are broke aren't lacking information about money. They're broke because they spend when they feel like spending and save when they feel like saving, which turns out to be almost never. Let me give you another example that really drives this home. I knew a writer who said he only wrote when inspiration struck. He was waiting for the muse to visit him. Well, the muse was apparently very busy because she rarely showed up. In 10 years, he had completed 1 book. Meanwhile, another writer I knew treated writing like a job. He sat down every morning at 8 o'clock and wrote for 4 hours, whether he felt inspired or not. In those same 10 years, he had written 12 books. Same dream, different approach, completely different results. This is where most people get it wrong. They think discipline is about being hard on yourself. They think it's about suffering and sacrifice. But that's not what discipline is at all. Discipline is about keeping the promises you make to yourself. It's about being someone you can count on. It's about looking yourself in the mirror and knowing that when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. When you rely on your mood to determine your actions, you're basically handing over control of your life to something completely unreliable. Your mood changes with the weather, with what you ate for breakfast, with something someone said to you, with how much sleep you got, with 1,000 different variables you can't control. Is that really who you want running your life? Your ever-changing, unpredictable, unreliable mood? The fascinating thing is this: when you act with discipline regardless of your mood, something remarkable happens. Your mood often follows your actions. You don't feel like going to the gym, but you go anyway, and 20 minutes into your workout, you feel great. You don't feel like working on your business, but you start anyway, and an hour later, you're energized and productive. You don't feel like being kind to someone, but you do it anyway, and suddenly you feel better about yourself. Action creates emotion more often than emotion creates action. But we've been taught backwards. We've been taught to wait for the feeling, then take the action. The truth is, you take the action, and the feeling shows up later. Sometimes it shows up during the action. Sometimes it shows up after. But waiting for it to show up before you start is a recipe for a mediocre life. Your future's being created right now by what you're doing today, not by how you're feeling today. 5 years from now, you're not going to remember how you felt on this random Tuesday. But you're going to be living with the results of what you did or didn't do on this random Tuesday and every other day like it. Now, let me share something with you that took me years to fully understand. Discipline isn't just about getting things done. It's about building your character, one decision at a time. Every time you do what you said you'd do, especially when you don't feel like it, you're making a deposit into your character account. And just like compound interest in the bank, these deposits add up in ways that seem almost magical over time. Think about compound interest for a moment. You put a little bit of money away consistently, and at first nothing much seems to happen. The numbers barely move. But you keep at it month after month, year after year, and suddenly you look up and there's real wealth sitting there. Discipline works exactly the same way. The results seem insignificant at first. You work out for a month and barely notice the difference. You read for 30 minutes a day and don't feel much smarter. You save $100 a week and your bank account still looks modest. But you keep going, and one day you turn around and your whole life is transformed. You know who taught me this lesson better than anyone? Farmers. I grew up around farming communities, and those folks understand something most people have forgotten. A farmer doesn't plant his crops based on how he feels. He doesn't look out the window in spring and say, I'm just not feeling it today. I think I'll wait until I'm more motivated to plant these seeds. If he did that, his family would starve. The farmer plants in spring because that's when you plant. He tends his crops in summer because that's when you tend. He harvests in fall because that's when you harvest. His feelings are completely irrelevant to the process. Nature doesn't care about his mood. The seasons don't adjust to his emotions. There are laws at work that are bigger than his temporary feelings, and he respects those laws because he understands the consequences of ignoring them. The same natural laws apply to your life, whether you acknowledge them or not. There are laws of health, laws of wealth, laws of relationships, and laws of personal development. These laws don't bend to accommodate your bad days. They don't make exceptions because you're tired or stressed or going through something difficult. They just operate consistently and predictably, responding to your actions rather than your intentions. Here's something else I've learned. There's a huge difference between willpower and systems. Most people try to run their lives on willpower alone, and willpower is exhausting. Willpower is trying to force yourself to do something through sheer mental effort every single time. That's not sustainable. What successful people do is build systems that remove the need for constant willpower. Let me explain what I mean. If you have to decide every morning whether or not you're going to exercise, you're going to lose that battle most days because your bed is comfortable and your body wants to stay put. But if you build a system where your workout clothes are laid out, your alarm is set, your gym bag is packed, and you've made an appointment to meet a friend, you've removed most of the decision making. The system carries you forward even when your willpower is weak. The real magic happens when discipline becomes identity. When you stop saying, I should work out, and start saying, I'm someone who works out. When you stop saying, I need to save money, and start saying, I'm a saver. When you stop saying, I have to work on my business, and start saying, I'm a business builder. Once it becomes part of who you are, it's no longer something you have to force yourself to do. It's just what you do because it's who you are. But let me tell you about the lies we tell ourselves, because I've told myself every single one of them. I'll start tomorrow. That's probably the biggest lie of all. Tomorrow is the most popular day of the week for starting new habits. And you know what? Tomorrow never comes. It's always today. I'll do it when things settle down. Things never settle down. Life doesn't get easier. You just get stronger by facing it consistently. I'll begin when I have more time. You have the same 24 hours as everyone else who's accomplishing great things. I knew a man who was going to write a book when he retired. He was going to travel when he retired. He was going to learn to paint when he retired. He was going to spend time with his grandchildren when he retired. He died 6 months after retirement. All those dreams died with him because he kept postponing life until some magical future day that turned out to be much closer than he thought. The truth is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right now, this moment. Not when you feel ready. Not when circumstances are perfect. Not when you're more prepared. Now, let me tell you about something that might surprise you. I've studied highly successful people for decades, and you know what I've found? Many of them maintained their routines during the worst periods of their lives. They lost loved ones and still showed up for work. They went through divorces and still exercised. They faced financial disasters and still invested in their learning. Not because they were superhuman, but because they understood that abandoning discipline during hard times would only make everything worse. When everything in your life is falling apart, your discipline is actually what holds you together. It provides structure when everything feels chaotic. It reminds you that you still have control over something, even if you can't control your circumstances. Here's what I want you to understand. Every decision you make is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you're voting for the successful version of yourself. Every time you choose the easy path over the right path, you're voting for someone you probably don't want to be, and the person who gets the most votes wins. It's democracy in action, except you're the only voter, and you're voting every single day with every single choice. Your future self is watching you right now. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there's a version of you that's looking back at this moment. What do you want that future person to say about the choices you're making today? Do you want them to say, thank God I started when I did. Thank God I didn't wait. Thank God I pushed through when it was hard. Or do you want them to say, I wish I had started sooner. I wish I hadn't wasted those years waiting to feel ready. The beautiful thing about discipline is that it's completely fair. It doesn't care about your background, your education, your connections, or your natural talents. It's available to everyone equally. A person with average intelligence and strong discipline will outperform a genius with weak discipline every single time. A person with modest talents and consistent effort will achieve more than someone with extraordinary gifts and inconsistent application. Discipline is the great equalizer. It's the one thing that anyone can develop regardless of where they're starting from. You might not be able to control your genetics, your upbringing, or the circumstances you were born into. But you can absolutely control whether you do what you said you'd do when you said you'd do it. That choice is completely yours, and nobody can take it away from you. Now, let me get practical with you, because understanding why discipline matters doesn't help much if you don't know how to actually build it. And here's what most people get wrong right from the start. They try to change everything at once. They wake up one Monday morning and decide they're going to exercise every day, eat perfectly, read for 2 hours, build their business, be a better spouse, save money, and basically transform into a completely different person overnight. You know what happens? By Wednesday, they're exhausted and overwhelmed, and by Friday, they're right back where they started, convinced that they just don't have what it takes. That's not how you build discipline. That's how you guarantee failure. Let me tell you how you actually do it, and this is going to sound almost too simple, but stay with me. You start so small that it feels ridiculous. You start with something so easy that you'd be embarrassed to tell anyone about it because it seems insignificant. But here's what you're really doing. You're learning to keep a promise to yourself. When I was getting my life together back in my 20s, I didn't start by trying to revolutionize everything. I started by making my bed every single morning. That's it. Just making the bed. It took me 2 minutes. And honestly, at first I thought it was stupid. What difference could making a bed possibly make? But here's what I didn't understand then that I understand now. I was teaching myself that I could say I was going to do something and then actually do it. I was proving to myself that I was someone who followed through. After a month of making my bed every day, something shifted inside me. I thought, if I can do this, what else can I do? So I added one more small thing. I decided I would read 10 pages of a good book every day. Not a whole book, not even a chapter, just 10 pages. Some days I'd read more because I got interested, but the commitment was only 10 pages. That was achievable even on my worst days. This is the secret that changes everything. Sequential wins build momentum. When you stack small victories, one on top of another, you create a snowball effect. Each success makes you slightly more confident. Each kept promise makes you slightly more reliable to yourself. And before you know it, you're not the same person who struggled to do anything consistently. You've become someone who does what they say they'll do, and that changes everything. Let me talk about mornings for a minute, because this is where discipline gets tested every single day. How you start your morning determines the trajectory of your entire day. If you wake up and immediately give in to the snooze button, you've just taught yourself that comfort is more important than commitment. You've started your day with a loss. But if you get up when that alarm goes off, even though every fiber of your being wants 5 more minutes, you've won the first battle of the day. And when you win the first battle, the rest of the day tends to follow suit. I learned to think of mornings as the foundation of my entire day. If I could win the first hour, I could win the day. So I built a morning routine that was non-negotiable, not because I always felt like doing it, but because I removed negotiation from the equation. That's another key principle right there. Stop negotiating with yourself. Most people spend enormous amounts of mental energy every day negotiating with themselves. Should I work out or should I skip it today? Should I eat healthy or should I have that donut? Should I work on my goals or should I watch television? Every one of these negotiations drains your mental energy and gives your feelings a vote they shouldn't have. Successful people remove the negotiation. The decision is already made. It's not up for discussion. It's simply what happens. Here's a phrase that's been incredibly valuable to me over the years. Eat the ugly frog first. Mark Twain supposedly said that if you eat a live frog first thing in the morning, the rest of your day will be wonderful because the worst thing you could do is already done. In practical terms, this means doing the thing you least want to do, the thing you're most likely to procrastinate on, the thing that creates the most resistance. Do that first before you do anything else. When I have an important phone call I'm dreading, I make it first thing. When I have a difficult conversation that needs to happen, I have it in the morning. When I have work that feels hard or unpleasant, I tackle it before I check email or do anything else. Why? Because if I wait until later, I'll spend the whole morning thinking about it, worrying about it, finding reasons to postpone it. It'll drain my energy all day long, even though I haven't done it yet. But if I just do it right away, it's over. It's done. And everything else feels easier by comparison. Now, let me address something important. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to break your streak. You're going to have days when you fail to do what you committed to doing. This is absolutely guaranteed to happen. And how you handle these moments determines whether you'll ultimately succeed or give up. Most people treat a single setback as total failure. They miss one workout and decide they've fallen off the wagon completely, so they might as well quit. They break their diet one evening and figure they've ruined everything, so they spend the next week eating badly. They skip their reading one day and lose all their momentum. This all-or-nothing thinking kills more dreams than anything else. Here's what I learned: never miss twice. If you miss once, that's life. Things happen. You get sick, you have an emergency, circumstances interrupt your plans, that's one miss. But you never miss twice in a row. If you miss your morning routine one day, you absolutely do it the next day no matter what. If you skip your workout on Monday, Tuesday is non-negotiable. If you break your diet at lunch, dinner is back on track. Never miss twice. That's the rule that keeps you from spiraling. Let me tell you about tracking, because this is something most people overlook. You need a way to see your consistency, to measure your follow-through. I used to keep a simple calendar where I'd mark an X for every day I kept my commitments. Nothing fancy, just an X. But seeing that chain of X's grow longer and longer became incredibly motivating. I didn't want to break the chain. Some people use journals, some use apps, some use spreadsheets. The method doesn't matter. What matters is that you're tracking, because you can't manage what you don't measure. But here's something subtle that makes a huge difference. Celebrate the system, not just the outcome. Most people only celebrate when they see big results. They only feel good about themselves when they lose the weight, make the money, or achieve the goal. But that's setting yourself up for disappointment, because big results take time. What you should celebrate is following your system. Did you do your workout even though you didn't feel like it? Celebrate that. Did you stick to your budget even though you wanted to splurge? Celebrate that. Did you read your 10 pages even though you were tired? Celebrate that. The system is what creates the results, but the system comes first. And if you only celebrate outcomes, you'll go long periods without feeling successful. But if you celebrate the system, you can feel successful every single day, because every day you follow your system is a successful day, regardless of whether you can see the results yet. Let me talk about environment for a minute, because this is something that can make discipline so much easier or so much harder. Your environment is constantly pushing you in one direction or another. If you keep junk food in your house, you'll eat junk food. If you keep your phone next to your bed, you'll waste time on it. If you surround yourself with people who make excuses, you'll make excuses. But if you design your environment intentionally, you can make the right choices almost automatic. I learned to set up my environment so that discipline was the path of least resistance. I put my running shoes next to my bed so they're the first thing I see in the morning. I keep healthy food at eye level in my refrigerator and hide the less healthy stuff. I put my books in visible places and my television remote in a drawer. I schedule important work when my energy is highest and protect that time fiercely. Small adjustments to your environment can remove huge amounts of temptation and make discipline dramatically easier. Another thing about environment: the people around you matter more than you probably realize. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. If you're trying to build discipline but you're surrounded by people who sleep until noon, complain constantly, and never follow through on anything, you're fighting an uphill battle. Not because they're bad people, but because we're influenced by those we spend time with. We adopt their standards, their habits, their attitudes, often without even realizing it. You don't have to cut people out of your life, necessarily. But you do need to be intentional about who influences you. Spend time with people who have the kind of discipline you want to develop. Watch what they do. Ask them questions. Let their standards raise your standards. If everyone around you thinks it's normal to be overweight, broken, unhappy, those things will seem normal to you too. But if you're around people who take care of their health, manage their money well, and work on themselves consistently, that becomes your new normal. Here's something that might sound strange, but I promise it works. Make discipline easier than you think you need to. Most people make their goals harder than necessary. They think suffering equals progress, so they create rules that are punishing and unsustainable. But discipline isn't about punishment. It's about consistency. And consistency requires sustainability. If you hate running, don't make running your exercise. Find something you can tolerate or even enjoy. If you can't stand cooking, find simple, healthy meals that take 5 minutes to prepare. If reading feels like a chore, listen to audiobooks instead. The point isn't to make yourself miserable. The point is to build habits you can maintain for years, not just weeks. Make it as easy as possible to do the right thing, because every bit of unnecessary friction gives your feelings an opportunity to override your commitment. The ultimate goal is to reach a point where discipline becomes identity, where it's so woven into who you are that it doesn't require much thought anymore. But getting there requires patience and repetition. You're not just changing your behavior, you're changing your brain, creating new neural pathways, building new habits at a neurological level. That takes time. Research suggests it takes anywhere from 2 months to 8 months for a new behavior to become automatic, depending on the complexity in the person. But here's the encouraging part. Every single act of discipline makes the next one slightly easier. Your brain is learning. Your character is strengthening. Your self-trust is growing. You're literally becoming a different person, one choice at a time, one day at a time. And that person you're becoming is someone you can rely on, someone you can be proud of, someone who does what they say they're going to do regardless of how they feel. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. Where will you be 5 years from now if you keep living exactly the way you're living today? Not where you hope to be. Not where you plan to be. Where will you actually be if your current patterns continue? Because that's the trajectory you're on right now. Your daily choices are building your future, whether you're paying attention or not. I've watched people transform their entire lives through nothing more than consistent daily discipline. I knew a man who was 300 pounds, divorced and bankrupt at 40 years old. He started walking for 20 minutes every morning, just walking. That's all. 5 years later, he had lost 120 pounds, remarried, built a successful business, and told me that morning walk was the domino that knocked down every other domino in his life. One small disciplined action created a ripple effect that changed everything. That's what most people don't understand about discipline. It doesn't just change the specific area you're working on. It changes you as a person. And when you change, everything in your life starts to shift. When you prove to yourself that you can be disciplined about exercise, you start believing you can be disciplined about money. When you're disciplined about money, you start believing you can be disciplined about your business. One area of discipline builds confidence that spills over into every other area. And here's something beautiful. Your discipline doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone watching you. Your children learn more from what you do than what you say. When they see you getting up early, working when you're tired, keeping your commitments regardless of your mood, you're teaching them how to live. You're giving them a model of what's possible. The greatest gift you can give the people you love isn't your words or your money, it's your example. Now, let me be honest with you about something painful. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. I've met countless people in their 60s and 70s who tell me their biggest regret is what they didn't do. They regret not taking care of their health when they had it. They regret not building wealth when they had time. They regret not investing in their relationships when those people were still alive. They don't regret the discipline they practiced. They regret the discipline they avoided. You think discipline is hard. Let me tell you what's hard. Being 65 years old with no savings is hard. Being 50 and barely able to walk because you didn't take care of your body is hard. Looking back on a life of unrealized potential because you kept waiting to feel ready is hard. Discipline might feel difficult in the moment, but regret is a weight you carry every single day for the rest of your life. Here's the truth. Discipline isn't restriction. It's freedom. It's freedom from debt, from poor health, from mediocrity, from chaos, from living at the mercy of your circumstances. Disciplined people aren't missing out on life. They're the ones actually living while everyone else is just existing, reacting, hoping things will somehow get better without having to change. So here's my challenge to you. Start today, not tomorrow, not Monday, not when things settle down or when you feel ready. Today, right now. Make one small commitment and keep it. Then make another and another. Build your discipline one decision at a time until it becomes who you are. Because 5 years from now, you'll arrive. The question is, where? That decision is being made right now, in this moment, by what you choose to do, regardless of how you feel.